Hi, everyone. It's John Galante, president of AE Ventures, here with another Builder Innovator webcast in our Future of Home Technology series that we're teamed with the Consumer Technology Association on. Today, our focus is new homes and age tech, is what I'm hearing it called increasingly, especially from our friends in the Consumer Technology Association. We're actually going to do two sessions. We've got this expert session, and then we're going to walk through some research detail that the Consumer Technology Association's staff put together last year to really provide a little bit of a primer. But for now, we've got a great lineup. We have a veritable Brady Bunch set up here with 5 panelists and myself. You know, my purpose for this webcast is really to start dialogue. I do not think we have much contact going on between home building companies and the technology providers in this space who have product under development. I can't remember ever seeing that conversation taking place. So I'm hoping this is a kickoff point. It provides some baseline information on both sides of the equation, and that it will facilitate some common visioning and collaboration down the line. The way we're going to flow is Amy and Steve, who are our representatives on the builder side of things. I love this phrase of life cycle and lifestyle, or lifestyle and life cycle going together, of that adult active buyer, so we could get a picture of who we're serving. Desiree is going to give us a vision of the electrical and network infrastructure. Ricky is going to talk about leveraging consumer technologies for home improvement. And then Rich is our AI enthusiast who's going to tell us how that's going to transform age tech. And we'll wrap up with some highlights. So that's our plan of attack.
Well, hi, I'm Amy McCormick. I have been with Epcon Communities for 15 years and we specialize solely on the 55 plus buyer. I've worked in various aspects of the company, all related to sales. You asked about the life cycle or the demographics of our buyer. And I think what's interesting is while we've always focused on the 55 plus buyer, the actual average age of our homeowners is 67 years old. So kind of different. And I feel like as far as the big changes for them are going to be that this buyer spends significantly more time in their home post retirement. So comfort, wellness, convenience are all going to matter more than ever.
I agree. I'm Steve Bradford with Lexar Homes. I'm the director of sales, and we are an on your lot builder. I would say well over half of our buyers fall into that 55 and plus category, 55 or better, as we like to say. And we have seen a shift in the design of the homes that we're building for people, as well as the technology that they're wanting to see in there to help their lives, improve their lives. And so um, it's rapidly changing what the expectation of our consumers are when it comes to not just home design, but technology as well. And so we're trying to adapt as quickly as possible. In fact, I put a tremendous emphasis not only on standalone homes, but also ADUs and opportunities for caregivers or family members and aging parents and or grandparents living together. So we're seeing if you look at the stats with regard to the percentage of the population that's 55 or 65 and older, it continues to grow.
So Amy, I just wanted to interject here. I think we've got a little bit of a disconnect from the marketing, which says 55 plus, and then the reality of that buyer is, I think, what you're getting at. And what it means is that this is a very relevant, the aging in place piece is very relevant. It may not be terribly relevant at 55 to 60 or 65, but when your average buyer is at 67, those mobility issues are starting to ensue. And so it's almost right from the get go that this is a relevant set of factors. If I is that the way to read it?
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. I think if you thought I'm 55 and it's not that some of those things aren't important to me, but if I'm 6 to 7, I'm sure my needs are definitely going to change, or at least want to think about the future. So some of those shifting needs for those buyers is, they want to be able to lock and leave, and of course they want low maintenance. But mobility support might not be important now, but they're going to want a home that's going to adapt to them. So, universal design is an extremely popular option that we offer in our homes um, and it's only preferred when it's attractive, seamless, and not clinical.
This is a structural option for your buyers. What it looks like for me, facilitated by the Hierarch platform, I'm betting. But they check that box, and then they're going to get the doors and windows all really set to this. It's almost an ADA compliance, right? Get wheelchairs and walkers through entryways and such.
Well, it's going to widen the doors and the hallways to accommodate things like wheelchairs and walkers. Definitely makes it easier to get around.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what Amy said with regard to the look, the aesthetic of a universally designed home or a home that accommodates mobility issues is that it needs to be attractive and really not feel like an assisted living facility. It feels like home. And so balancing functionality with form is key with these buyers, especially because, I mean, Amy, you've heard it a lot. I know I've heard it a lot. This is our last home. This is, I'm moving out of here feet first, and so I don't want to be in a home that I don't find attractive, that I don't like having people come visit me in. And this is the best of both worlds when we can blend those two.
Yeah, and the point, this is to my point, this is a universal design shower. So it accommodates all those things, but nothing about that says hospital or clinical at all. It's just beautiful, has a ton of natural light. And this, it's so funny. Uh, we offer grab bars in these. Nobody will put them in.
We need a generation of better looking grab bars. This is going to be one of my themes. Is that the industrial design on all of this stuff needs to be improved. The mechanical stuff, the hardware, and even the technology.
I was gonna say the grab bar, the have you done the grab bars with the toilet roll holders, where you reinforce the thing that holds the toilet roll so that it can be used as a grab bar as well, and it doesn't look as clinical as we go back to that work.
Again, just showing that these wide doors and hallways, you would not notice them, and actually makes the rooms look larger and more functional, and creates more natural light. All the things our buyers want.
I think what we get sometimes on the technology industry side of things is mass market goals. So designing the look and feel of some of these products to be extremely cost effective. And there's a point of disconnect, right? Because people want nice fit and finish on this, and the technology needs to fit in, with all the other finishes, right?
That's right. We're not a big box builder. We're definitely a more luxury builder. And we are, just to give you an example, our average in options alone is over 150,000 a year or a home. If you were to look at most of the data of the 55 plus, the boomers and the Gen Xers, they're going to tell you that they prefer to stay in the home they're in right now. A huge, massive majority of them. But, it's not really reality, and they don't think about that at the time, and so I think that's probably why we see them actually move in that 67 range, but making a change usually becomes necessary due to the home not working for them, like stairs or maintenance. Um, A lot of them, it's lack of community even. Nobody's home during the day in their communities. And then, of course, they'll chase their grandbabies all over the country. So, that's usually why they're moving is one of those reasons.
In our situation, it is getting closer. They want to be close to family. They don't necessarily need to be on top of family, but they want to be closer to family. And a lot of times it's closer to health services. It's a lot of our buyers are rural, and so getting them a little closer to healthcare and all other services that come with aging is a big portion of why they're moving. I love what you say, Amy, is that they prefer not to. But the reality is sort of smack them in the face, whether it was a knee surgery or a hip surgery, and those stairs no longer are tenable. And then the other part is that main floor, and aging in place is such a big part of our conversation now, even for those under 55 buyers that say, hey, when I get at that point in my life, do I have a home that's going to be able to accommodate my needs?
What you're looking at here is an example of our bonus suite. It's so funny. So I mentioned one of the reasons they move is to be closer to family. And definitely the home must work for the support system as well. So we build smaller communities located within communities. So we're looking at like 100 or less homes built into existing communities. So they're generally moving closer to their children into their neighborhoods, if that makes sense. And so that makes access easy to them. They don't have to drive through, 2,500 homes to get to mom and dad's house to help them go through a gate or anything like that. But 60% of our buyers choose the selection of this added living space. And the bonus suite not only has this nice living area, they can have kitchenettes, and then it also has a full bedroom and bath up there. So, bonus suite select option is easy for them to choose. And we hear all the time it's a just in case space. They value an open floor plan, as mentioned before, with a ton of natural light. The more the better, for sure. That's right. They definitely value family. This family is very important and moving closer. And then also in this slide is walking trails is the number one requested amenity is a place to walk.
What about the pet situation?
Those
Little
there
ones?
what's that?
Little ones? Smaller dogs?
We see them all. We see all the dogs. I have a homeowner with a Great Dane that's like, she's like, they don't really even need to be walked. But anyways, but we see the families. Definitely, pets are a big deal.
Well, I think the low maintenance part of it is the biggest one that we see is it, and that's one of the reasons that they're going new. The idea of buying a and Amy, you've probably heard this phrase a million times, but this, we go, hey, this has got a 25-year warranty or a 30-year warranty, and I'm like, well, that's going to outlive me, But the idea that they have a home that is low maintenance, that they don't have to worry about little maintenance items around the house. That's big. One of the other reasons people move is because their house has become a burden to them and they don't have the ability or capacity to make those repairs. So going with a brand new home is always a good move.
And they also value social activities. Socially active clubhouse really helps our buyers see themselves not just sitting around and watching TV in retirement years. So that's for sure. Pickleball for sure. So just staying active and a lot of people will we do so occasionally build a community that won't have a pickleball court and that's a big deal. And then of course just wellness features including the gym, workout space, yoga space, those kinds of things are highly requested. You asked me earlier about tech and um I say technology should en enhance all these things, but not complicate them. But this is literally the only photo I could find with any kind of tech, because that light automatically comes on the floor when they walk into the closet in certain areas. And that's one of the very few things that I could find in our photo library of anything techie at all. It's just thought that was kind of funny. And I think that that also goes to prove that they'll like it if it's also stylish and undetectable as actually being saying, "Hey, I'm old and I need assistance."
We have to meet our buyers where they are, wherever that happens to be. Some of them are very much interested in this technology and the advances that we could potentially offer them, and some have no interest whatsoever. And so to basically say, we're going to give you this super double throwdown technology package in your home, some people will roll their eyes and go, "That's a waste because I'm never going to use it." I look at my mother and father-in-law. One of them is an avid iPhone user, and the other one won't use it to save their life. And so we've got to meet them where they are and adjust the technology to the skill level and the comfort level that they're willing to do.
But I guess my question to you all as builders is whether the technology industry has done a good job of uh, helping you develop the assortments that are right for your buyer.
We want to offer something and we want to know what's out there so that we can offer those solutions to our buyers. But uh, sometimes we're piecemealing it. We're figuring it out on our own and trying to put something together that we think will work. And I've seen some of those initiatives, you know, plummet into the ground because they were not received as well as we thought they would. So I'd love a concise and simple sort of you know, here's a package for this type of person, here's a package for this type of person, and here's a package for this type of person. Just a ABC, a sort of choice for the high tech, the mid tech, and the low tech user. But I have not gotten a good summary.
Come at you pitching that, right?
Not really. I think the tech companies come at us, but they come at us in such a high tech, only a nerd will understand sort of path that we know that it's going to be intimidating to the consumer. If it's intimidating to us,
Yeah, be easy and streamlined for the builder too, right? To be able to do it. Right now, we rely on um, our AV companies, so like we're going to send them out. So we sometimes learn about some of the technology that after our buyers have put it in because they've met with a different company. But that's it. That's only limited to what they offer, and that's usually in security, hello, security and sound.
Thank you, John, for having me. I'm Desiree Webster, the product manager of IoT strategy at Looker. I've had the privilege of aligning smart home products to consumers and their homes for over 2 decades now. So I am passionate about technology, but more passionate about how technology aligns to our lifestyle and enhances our specific homes, which is different from customer to customer and individual to individual. So, just speaking kind of broadly of technology, because as I just mentioned, that's where I'm passionate. So, before we get into the electrical piece, speaking about technology in general, um, there are frankly plenty of simple and affordable solutions, which is I hear Amy and Steve talking about the builder communities and what they're looking for and perhaps some of their pain points in finding simple solutions that they can offer to their customers. The good news is technology has matured quite a bit and there are a lot of solutions. Now, what John just mentioned relative to pieces and components versus solutions, that is a real thing that we grapple with. And one of the most challenging, as I think about aging in place and I think about homeowners and individuals in those homes, one of the most challenging parts to be able to provide the right solution is that that's going to differ from home to home, right? Because the way that we need to implement technology is very much personal. The things that I like for my home and my family, the things that add value to my lifestyle, are not going to be the same things that add value to my parents' lifestyle. In fact, they're drastically different coming from somebody who manages the technology in my parents' home as well as in my own home. and in various other aunts and uncles' homes, I can tell you it's not a one size fits all recipe, right? It's very different, because the goal here should always be find the right benefit and the right value specifically for that customer, which really means digging into the specific pain points. So, just to kind of share at a high level some technologies, and I'll just go through 3 or 4 use cases. I think about products like HVAC, lighting, security, sensors throughout the home. These are common products in the household. And in fact, most of those things are pretty much table stakes or mandatory in a household. But the difference in these things, when you add a layer of technology to them, these things can now be automated. This layer, it adds a layer of security and assurance for whether it's caregivers or people, maybe active adults who have a second home, who when they're away, or when they're away, as Amy said, they go away quite often to visit their children and their grandchildren, right? And so this idea that the common household platforms like your HVAC unit, your lighting control, your security, you need some extra level of control over that, and you need some ability to automate that and remotely access that. It's that level of peace and assurance that, hey, my house is secure. I can see my cameras when I'm, at my home in Florida. I can ensure that my elderly parent, the HVAC is still operating, even though we're having a sub-zero week in whatever region that they live in. These things are kind of critical to just being able to manage the overall home ecosystem. The next layer of where I see technology is just in daily task. And I think technology, when used to manage daily task, is something that can impact life in every stage, right? From the youngest, where you're trying to get your kids to do chores, all the way up to active aging and even aging in place where we see caregivers involved. This is great for older individuals who may need a little bit of memory support in remembering common tasks, such as to take medication or to get dressed in the morning or to call and touch base with a caregiver or a daughter or a child, right? Um, in addition, I think even aging adults can appreciate a task list. And when I say a task list, I am speaking of automating these and digitizing these. So there's a command center, think of it in the kitchen, or it could be mobile. And every morning it's alerting someone to, here's the task for the day. And in fact, they can even be automated so the tasks pop up at different times during the day. 6 p.m., time to take a shower, right? Time to get ready for bed. All of those can kind of come in and they can be checked off. Therefore, a caregiver or some other supporting individual can also see the activity that's taking place during the day. So, again, this can be done on different levels. If you're an active adult, interestingly enough, one of the most difficult transitions is in the transition to retirement, or so I've heard. I haven't yet got there. But most of the folks that I hear talk about the transition to retirement, it's in the lack of substance in what to do, right? What do I now do with a full day? So these daily routines can be built into these digitized tasks that really keep somebody on kind of a good transition path, even as they're active aging, to plan out some days ahead and some key tasks that need done. So I think technology, when used to help support daily lifestyle tasks, can benefit everybody. Another one, I'm going to take you to a space just to talk about the kitchen for a moment and why the kitchen. I could go room to room, but just for this podcast, I'm going to talk about the kitchen, John, because the kitchen is an area where so much happens, and it tends to be an area that people gravitate toward across all spectrums of life. So, some pain points in the kitchen. Think of someone who's a little older reaching to the highest cabinet to find a bowl or to find a recipe box or a recipe book, remembering to write down the grocery list, knowing the contents of the pantry, or even just cooking for one instead of a large family, right? Technology can assist with all of these things, and there are a variety of products that can support this type of need on the market. Everything from storing your recipes electronically, again, screen in the kitchen, you just call out with your voice what you want to make, and the recipe's there. You want to add those groceries to your grocery list? Absolutely. Tell Alexa to add those groceries to my grocery list. And now you want to share that grocery list with your local shopping center that does your shopping, or maybe your caregivers doing your shopping. Absolutely. You can share that grocery list directly to them. All of these things, voice or machine aided, the shopping lists, auto populating the recipe, all of these things can add a layer of convenience, which again, as you transition on the spectrum of aging, might be a requirement later in life. But if you're at the 50 plus kind of active adult life cycle phase, you might not need all of this, but you can certainly find some efficiency and some convenience in some.
I gotta call timeout and get some builder opinions on this.
Oh,
Amy, you're leaning in. What are you thinking?
I'm loving it, and I'm thinking, you know, it's it all. I actually have my mother has Alzheimer's and lives with me, and I'm thinking that there is some technology out there that had she started using when she was 55, it would still be natural today. So it's exciting for the future because I think it's more difficult to add that piece in. But yeah, I've had so many thoughts, and it supports everything we talked about. I know our buyers, they want it to be intuitive and they want to adapt with them. Like their needs are going to change over time. And I think that's the really cool thing is if we can just keep layering it on and kind of yes anding the same product instead of, to Steve's point, of piecemealing a bunch of stuff together.
I love the idea of adjusting to the idea that you're not going to work anymore on a daily basis. So how do you fill that day? And the lists are great, and I see that with my in-laws as an example. But as somebody in our mid 50s, um, we setting that alert to take those pills at 7 o'clock every night. And we slowly start to augment that. And like you said, Amy, it's augmenting a lifestyle that we've already become accustomed to.
Something as easy as the grocery list, which you can kind of start to implement that early on. You're not really sharing your grocery list until you're at the point where you have somebody who has to do your shopping for you. You know what I mean? Um, I'm not automating today the contents of my pantry. I could, but that's not right for my lifestyle at today's stage in life. Over time, we could certainly find some folks that could benefit from that. So there's definitely a growth evolution.
Here we have an industry ecosystem, right? We have some makers and we have some builders, but you're all in this together. But are you really in this together in terms of understanding the opportunity and coming to a common place as to what should be offered and how, right? I don't think we're there yet. That's like we always have the answer with the tech. We don't have the answer on the go to market. And I'm not just talking about marketing and then selling it, talking about delivering on the value.
Really solving for the solution based off of a very specific customer need. We haven't got there yet, right? As you know, the market is fragmented. A lot of different manufacturers that really focus on category level products, not overall user solutions.
I'll tell you what I do a lot of questionnaires about is I do a lot of questionnaires about the state of the economy, about with the cost of building materials. I get surveys from John Burns and all of these other movers and shakers in our industry. I would be just as happy to fill out a survey about what percentage of my buyers are requesting certain options that pertain to aging in place. I can anecdotally tell you that over half the buyers that I interact with talk about curbless approaches to their showers, and that tells you something, right? So maybe it's up to somebody to come up with a really good questionnaire to send out to builders to figure out what the buyers are asking for.
I don't think Steve has this issue since they're custom builders as much as I do because even though we're a luxury builder, we're still a production builder. We still answer to a purchasing manager who may just say, We don't need that." They're not even in front of that customer. Um, so there's that level for us for sales. There's always that piece that's missing. Everything gets pitched to a purchasing agent, and if the the top 10 builders, the big builders, aren't asking for it, it's hard to get it.
Amy, put a note in here. I believe, Amy, you said that your typical buyer has 150,000 per home in add-ons.
Yes.
That's an incredible statistic for me, because you are talking about most of these things would be add-on options in any home, right? Especially in today's market. So really, John, when we think of a survey, it's the propensity of a buyer, a home buyer, to be willing to add this as another option. But I'll tell you, if we've got a bucket of 150K that's options, we have a good potential to get them in. Let's go right into it. So, thinking about the electrical framework of your home, again, one of the areas that probably isn't as sexy, but certainly something that I do love to talk about, John. It kind of breaks down into three components, if you will, for me. It's the first is expanding the footprint of powered devices. So, with a technology capable home, there are additional requirements which would require us to wire slightly differently, have more access points, if you will. So, if you think about sensors, the location of sensors, of cameras, and by the way, sensors drive a lot of this autonomous behavior where your lights turn on when you enter a room or when you get up in the middle of the night to walk to the restroom. All of that's being driven by sensors to allow somebody to understand the occupancy. These things now need wired. Now, battery options are available, but guess what? If you're 55 and aging, the last thing you want to do is keep getting out the old ladder in the garage, over top of the garage in the rafters, and going in and changing batteries up in a sensor. Okay. So, this is a unique thing that now we have to think about specifically for aging communities where in my home, I just tell my husband, hey, time to get out a ladder, right? That's not going to be the case in about 30 years. We're not going to want to do that. So, expanding the footprint of where we're wiring is number one. The second is altering the location of the common electrical devices and access points. So, again, I think of outlets. Those are about 12 to 18 inches off of the floor. Now, when I'm 70, I can tell you already that some of my joints have started to hurt after age 40. I am not going to want to continue to bend over and try to reach those. And if you're a mobility, task person, this might not even be an option to reach down at that level. So thinking through, do we need to move outlets up a little? Do we need to move switches down a little? But access points behind a bathroom, on the other side of a bathroom counter. So these are the type of things I think of when I think of altering the location of common devices. The last one is on power stability, and this one's huge, right? Because there tends to be more of a vulnerability on health as you age. Auto backup on power is critical. I'm talking about your heating system, your cooling system, and any critical medical devices. In an event of an emergency, it's not going to be as easy for these folks as they age to get out of that emergency situation, jump in their car, go somewhere else. There could be an opportunity that they would be stuck in that place, that position. So we need to make these homes as safe as possible to endure those critical situations. And I think backup power is one of the most critical here. Safety and security is another one on electrical. I think of just reducing risk with thoughtful design. And I'm sure you folks, both Amy and Steve, you probably have lighting designers. We certainly have lighting designers that focus on, are we giving the right amount of task lighting? Does it look good? Does it look good in the space? And I loved, Amy, what you said when you showed that what looked like a beautiful walk-in closet a few slides before, because you said when it looks good, technology looks good, people are more apt to start to engage with it, include it in their life. And some of these things, when I think of design, it goes beyond just looking good and it goes to, okay, are we functionally meeting the needs? As I mentioned, one of the biggest use cases is someone getting up in the middle of the night and having some sort of light turn on to guide them out of their bed space and into the restroom and back. A sensitivity to lighting design is going to be critical for keeping these folks safe in their home longer as they age in place. And then lastly, relative to safety and security, mental health and physical well-being, and the attachment or alignment between that well-being and natural lighting for our circadian rhythm. And so again, not everybody is going to get up and want to go open the blinds at 10 a.m. when it's sunny out, or close the blinds when it's, really cold out to keep the temperature out or to keep the temperature in. These are things that can be automated so that different trigger points happen automatically, and yet the homeowner is still able to enjoy the outside weather or the outside lighting. Let's talk about now networking, which is the critical infrastructure point that all connectivity attaches to. Okay. So it's not surprising that I'm going to lead off talking about the access and stability. And this is somewhat of a challenging one because for Amy and Seed, wherever you're placing your community, typically there's one or two network providers that folks are going to be limited to. Now, those choices are starting to open up as people are now starting to use home hotspots. So they've got a few more options through a Verizon or AT&T. But in general, regardless of who the provider is, it's going to be critical that everyone has access to a high-speed connection and that it's a stable high-speed connection. And again, there are some instances as they transition later in life and they go higher on the support curve where they're needing additional support or additional monitoring, a backup plan for the network is probably not off the table. The second piece of this is just thinking about support. Inevitably, there's going to need to be a level of support, whether it's, I've gotten calls before to help someone with their TV that keeps powering off. And it's something as simple as energy saving mode is turning the TV off. And this is a setting on the TV that you just need to use the remote control and fix. But as I think, Amy, you mentioned that you see folks that are really shy from technology, if they had implemented it 20 years ago and it grew with them, right, they would be a lot more comfortable now with it. Regardless of what it is, they're going to need what I call a support community to help them with that. Now, your support community can be someone like me. I tend to be that for everybody in my family, John, but it could also be a hired professional, right? I think it's important to have a strong relationship with this individual so you can maintain a balance of trust because they will have access to the home, to the technology in the home, to the controls in the home. Now, John, your favorite part, building a personalized solution. It's critical to start with the lifestyle needs, but think about the different products that you're selecting to make sure that they are compatible with each other, that they can share data. So if I'm selecting a doorbell, a video doorbell, I want it to be able to share data with my HVAC system or with my alarm system or with other systems within the house. This is not always easy, and we could probably have a session just talking about this compatibility and integration section.
In privacy and dignity, it's just we want to keep networks safe, right? We don't want people's personal information to be exposed, and we should be getting a lot of bandwidth to these homes, and we should be hardwiring to certain nodes where there's going to be TVs and computers, because we're going to have a whole bunch of network devices on that stuff as well.
I wanted to inject one little bit here, and that's that dignity part. I actually was meeting with a family a couple weeks ago, and the son said, "We want to monitor mom and dad, and so we just want to put a camera everywhere so we can see them and make sure they're healthy and safe." And the parents said, "Absolutely not. We don't want you looking in on us whenever you want." And we have to balance that there is that dignity part. And so when I saw that, that's what I thought of. Was I just remember the mother going, "You're not putting a camera in my house." inside.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think it is a balance. And the balance, of course, is critical. But I also think the balance, and it's really about privacy, as you're saying, the balance will change over time. What we're willing to, I think, give up to have a little bit more comfort or assurance. And just to kind of take another perspective at that, I now, think about alerts. So it's not that there's a key here. It's not that you want or should be monitoring 24/7, but you can set up systems to where you're only looking in when something alerts you that there's a possible problem. And I think that's going to be critical, especially on the earlier side of that spectrum where people are saying, hey, I'm pretty independent. I don't need you watching me all the time.
Okay, on to Ricky Choi. Ricky, introduce yourself. What do you do with Samsung?
Sure. So my name is Ricky Choi. I'm the head of digital health at Samsung Electronics America, and I'm also a practicing physician as faculty at Stanford. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to this discussion. This has been a lot of fun, and it's been multiple times that people mentioned that these different industries aren't talking to each other. And as I'm listening to just vocabulary and language that I'm actually not used to hearing, it's just kind of emphasizing the point. But I think we're all kind of focusing directionally in the same way. There are a huge percentage of people, in fact, 75% of people over the age of 50 want to age at home. And so what that leads to then, is an interest or projections of growing interest in technology spend. In fact, forecasted to be more than 120 billion by 2030. Those are numbers from the AARP. And why is that? Well, I think we know that the U.S. is aging rapidly. We know that 21% of Americans by 2030 will be at least 65 years old. What's been alluded to in this conversation, but I think we all know, is that when aging in the home, the burden on caregivers is really high. Depending on the estimate, some people would say that the adult child providing that caregiving can be on average 300 miles away from the care recipient. So there creates a lot of opportunity to look to technology to help close that gap. So when we think about connected care technologies in the home, we can think about that from a broad spectrum. On one hand, as some of the things we've talked about already, is that home environment, when they're talking about lighting or appliances, video doorbells and security systems, all the way to personal status types of technologies like the smartphone and robot assistants, down to PERS, that personal emergency response system devices, fall detection, etc., to personal health, whether it be digital apps and tools that you use to manage your health, medication reminders, and etc., all the way to personal medical status, such as, having that telehealth visit with your doctor. Now, John, I know you mentioned that we'll have a deeper dive in a future session on the CTA's report on smart home technologies. But just to give a preview, because I just felt like some of these slides were just really illuminating. One, it shows a little bit about what different generations think of when they say, smart tech and age tech. And so when we look at the latter two segments, the boomer and the mature, then we talk about age tech, then it does include a smart doorbell and smoke detector, as well as a blood pressure monitor or a connected alert medical device or a glucometer. And so there's quite a range of technologies that we can consider as we're thinking about this. And was alluded to this also is that, there are all these different technologies. What's driving people to actually make a purchase? I found this is the slide that I actually remember most from this huge deck that the CTA put together. And the number one factor, when making a purchase decision was ease of use. And that's been alluded to by other speakers, followed by the cost, and then reliability and accuracy and etc. So I think that as technology companies are thinking about designing products, that ease of use really needs to be front and center. In the process we go to building these technologies, I think we need to revamp and think about that a little bit in terms of engaging with that particular segment, that user segment, in that design, in the development, in the evaluation. And so when we talk about these four core, motivational themes, number one is, at least the highest rated one, the top value proposition by the most consumers, was around efficiency. And so it's about, again, going back to that ease of use, but really being accurate and reliable when they're monitoring their health and actually making things easier for them. It just needs to work. And If it does those things, then it allows them to feel more in control. It gives them that independence, and it allows them to take more control of their health, followed by trust. And again, it goes back to that accuracy and reliability. Doctor recommended would be great. And again, to provide that security and that confidence that that technology will do, what that says, so that they can go on to, in fact, manage the health and the other challenges that we're looking to address. So just to provide a little bit of color in terms of how we're thinking about it as one technology company, interested in this particular segment, aging in place. Our vision is around building a healthier future for everyone. And I think as probably the largest consumer technology company in the world, we're in a place where we can, once we develop things, we can, play a role in impacting people on the order of billions. And our vision around at Samsung Health has been around connected care centered around the home. Connectivity is a really key part, and I know that Desiree has been speaking to the importance of that connectivity in some of her talking points as well. And it speaks to the fragmentation of the healthcare system, the fragmentation of the patient experience, and as all the way down to the technology level. When we think about digital health or even just technology solutions, the fragmentation, that things don't talk to each other. There's not kind of a more platform-based approach. And so for Samsung, given our portfolio of technologies, we feel like we kind of have a right to play and a right to win in this general space as we think about not just wearables where we can do these really amazing biosensing capabilities like detect if you have sleep apnea, but also thinking about that broader portfolio of the home technologies. When we talk about the refrigerator, think about air filters, we talk about vacuum cleaners. As a physician, I look at these all as touch points. It helps me understand the health status of that individual. It helps me understand their health needs, their health goals, and different opportunities and ways that I can start guiding people to make that healthier choice, or give the caregiver a view in terms of the health status of that person. And so Desiree had a great example about the refrigerator. And so in our smart fridges, for example, we have a camera where you can peek in and see what the products are, if the contents of your fridge are what are in there. And so if you're shopping, it's a nice quick look back to make sure, remind yourself of what you need to buy. But, for my 80-year-old mother, if I were to peek into her fridge and I notice that the contents of that food hasn't changed, or she's not opening and closing her fridge, most families on average open and close their fridge 30 times a day. If she's not doing that, that's a reminder to me that I need to probably check in to see how she's doing. And earlier this year, we had developed a partnership with Instacart, where that now we can even more easily stock the fridge once it notices that you have a deplete, that you've run out of something in particular. So as we think about these automations and ways to making things easier to do that next step, I think there is a lot of promise. And so, we have a whole range of technologies that we can bring to bear. We have mobile technologies, the appliances, Smart Things is our IoT platform, as well as even Smart Food, which is a solution around guiding people and eating healthier based on what's already in your refrigerator. And so we sell 500 million devices every year, and our penetration is quite high. Nearly 70% of American homes have Samsung technology in it. Samsung's already been invited into their home. And so now the opportunity is, how do we start helping people do healthier things, utilizing that technology? And we have an app called Samsung Health app, which is kind of serves as that dashboard, that command control, where a lot of the health data comes together, and also as well as providing guidance about the next step in terms of improving your health. And so we've been thinking a lot about aging in place and the way that all the technologies that we're building can come together to try to enable and improve health. But we definitely don't feel like we need to build it all ourselves. And so we've been working through various partnerships in order to just try to understand what those can look like. We built out an interesting prototype that we launched at CES rather, or earlier this year. And I just thought I'd share this one example where we built out with technology a home in the Villages, a retirement community in Florida. And in it, we basically installed technologies from the H-Tech Collaborative members of the AARP. And you can see kind of a blueprint of the home, and installing partners as we start to kind of visualize and experience, what are the needs and the ways that we can arrange solutions in the home. And as Desiree mentioned, and I believe Amy as well, is the importance of the kitchen. It's a place where we eat, we manage our medications in some cases. So a lot of technologies there in terms of guidance, but also in the bedroom as well as the bathroom. I think people often chuckle a little bit when we talk about the smart toilet, but if you think about it from a health perspective, a lot of falls happen in the middle of the night on the way to the bathroom. People collapse while using the toilet, as we think about some of the physiology that it is involved there. And so there creates an interesting opportunity to start measuring biosignals there and understand those health needs. So I'll spare you reading every single line of here of the different companies that are involved, but this is our attempt to start to get at, and one attempt at getting at understanding user needs and how technologies can play a role.
It's a lot to look forward to. And even in examples like this health house, some of that assortment collecting, this is probably at the high concept level and maybe not what someone would go to market with right now, but this is the sort of comprehensive system solution that we need to be working on, I think. Rich Bira, bring us home.
So my name's Rich. I'm with Blue Connect Partners. We're a technology consulting firm. We help companies launch products, build products. We're all veterans from the space. I come from health and wellness as well. And today, I also do a lot of consulting companies launching AI or AI operations or what's their AI strategy. And I will preface, that I understand and have a lot of empathy for a lot of the concerns with AI. I am I spend half of my time grappling with some of the things that are coming and things that are happening. My sister's a teacher, my neighbor's a teacher. I have constant conversations. I have an 18-year-old son going off to college. Things are going to be different. And so, when you look at, where is AI going to come into the home and what does it mean? There's a lot of places that you could, I spent a lot of time in the small business and, almost enterprise space to see how they're launching AI agents. They're building these kind of autonomous systems. And a lot of that technology is actually going to transfer into the home. What is generative AI? And so, we've got AI that's getting better. It's getting compressed. You're going to have it on your phone. I think Ricky could speak to the fact that I think last week at, the Galaxy event, they showed how now you have your AI can live on your devices, answering some of those questions. And one of the things that I learned when we were launching health and wellness products, air quality sensors, air filtration, circadian lighting, people don't want to be the scientists. They don't want to look at that chart. They don't want to try to figure out what does all this data mean. And so what you're starting to see some of these companies like a Whoop, sorry, Rick, I mentioned, or they have AI coaches that are already in there that are taking a look at that data contextually and just answering questions in a very natural behavioral pattern. And Alexa Plus just rolled out, and I've been testing it for the last couple months. What they're using in the background is what's called this AI agents mixture of agents, right? Where you have kind of like this one main agent that's listening to what the command is. And now it can even go to Thumbtack and schedule an appointment and come back to you while you're cooking and say, here are your times available, and here's what you can do. Or another feature is when you have kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, and you've got all these school schedules to juggle. I talked to my sister. She said she has a friend that's taking a picture of the schedule and putting it into ChatGPT and saying, "Help me organize this." Well, now Alexa's going to be able to go into your Gmail, look for those things, and surface them and put them on that calendar. I speak a lot about agents because the world is changing where we're all going to have some type of assistant companion with us. You're starting to see it in enterprise tools. They're rolling out their co-pilots, and all the smart products are going to start to have some form of this. And I thought a lot about this. What does this mean for the home builders? And I think the home builders have a great opportunity that has been somewhat this missed kind of connection with the consumer after they moved in. when you think, and I was just at my sister's house, she's 40 years old with 2 kids. I looked in that drawer when she first bought that house, still there. All the manuals, all the things. She asks me questions all the time. She's like, in the winter, she's like, "Why is it so dry in here?" Well, you didn't adjust the humidistat, right? As maintenance free as homes are, you know, having that digitized all of the technology that goes in there, whether it's smart or not. What are those maintenance schedules? What are those things? And package that in a way that eventually you can have your own AI kind of to speak to say, when should I change my water filter? You know, why does this happen? Like, and so I encourage everybody to start trying to use some of these tools. And I know, Samsung has done some really good partnering with Google Gemini. Gemini is super powerful. You could pull out your phone. I was showing my mom the other day as she was cooking, her plant was dying. I said, watch what you can do. You could just point it at the plant, ask what's going on. It's going to tell you what the plan is. It's going to tell you how to revive it. And it's doing this in a very natural way. And then it spoke Polish to my mom. And so you start to think about this technology barrier that a lot of people have had, especially when you get older. They don't want to know how to set something up. They don't want, if something doesn't work that first time, or there's alerts, we all get alert fatigue. I have over 500 devices in my house, and I've got 200 plus different, scenes and stuff. But when you have guests that come over, or you have, your son is staying up late, those automated schedules or those alerts can throw everything off where all of a sudden people are like, I don't want to hear that alert anymore or that doorbell. And so, how can manufacturers of smart products actually use some of these AI capabilities to have actually more intelligent notifications? The ability with this AI today is that, today we are living in this text, video, input, output. People are starting to string them together, give a little bit of agency at every single step to say, if you see something like this, it's kind of like a higher arc, kind of like goal. And we're starting to see, and I've already worked with a company that's building out a large language model just for sensor data. And so you'll start to see over the next couple of years that these large companies, your open AIs that have been devouring all the internet data, they're going to go after all the sensor data that's out in the world, the IoT data. And that's where context is paramount. And I think, like, again, I've lived in this world for a very long time, 500 devices. I've watched people. I spend a lot of time with people too. The missing component and something that I did with, when we were at Delos is the actual context of the home itself. A lot of sensors can tell you something's going on. But for example, like if my fire alarm went off right now, I might hear it, then I might smell the smoke, and then I would see the fire. Those are 3 different sensors that would essentially validate that something's happening. And so this is the world where we're coming into, is the context of the home.
We talked about this evolving complexity of aging in place and how the needs change and the abilities change. And it seems like the smarts from the AI may be part of the ticket of that system evolving and us understanding how
The AI is able to understand and reason about data like we humans never would be able before. And I think that that's where the opportunity is for the builders. What's that digital, like create a digital footprint, like a digital twin of your home. Be that, be that piece that connects with a Samsung platform. Google and other are already talking about when we have all these agents. Right now, you can use Google as a search, and you see a restaurant, you want to know what hours they're open to. Google can go out and make that phone call for you, and it's going to come back. That is also essentially an agent talking to another agent. So how can you guys digitize and create this kind of connection with the consumer? Because health and wellness at home is also maintenance. It is also the stressors of what happens in the home. And knowing, I go to my mom's house and I can look around and go, Mom, why aren't you doing something about that right there? Well, I didn't know, and so when you have this kind of connection, it's almost like a USB port to a car that says, "Hey, car, house, what are you doing? What's going on? Why, you know, is there a foul order odor?" And a lot of things happen outside of our control, weather, events, people coming in that break those systems. And so homes that can at least say, "Hey, I've got an R rating on this window. My walls are this thick."
So you've got some thoughts on for 55 plus builders for Amy and Steve on incorporating AI, and just run through those real quick for us, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you zoom out and look where we're going, agents, everybody, like these assistants are going to get really smart. You're going to start to see, even your XR glasses that Samsung's coming out with. And listen, I'll even mention like, Samsung just recently hired their first ever new head of design, who's a person that I've followed and read all his books, former from Pepsi. It's the human element. There's going to be this human component that comes into this AI enabling that. And so, how can the builders start to get ready? Digitize your stuff, right? Create that kind of library. Already today, you could reach out to, partners to build you a customer service AI bot that's really good that has all this synthesized in it, right? How do you stay in touch with that customer even more and not burn people's hours, but yet still be able to answer those things? Smart home technology companies can do the same thing with their products from a setup perspective, from onboarding. I've tested a couple products, do it really well, right? And so that's step one. Finding the right solution for the right person, that context. If you think about the challenge, and I remember my first day smart home company from Europe 15 years ago. It is hard to get a message that's synthesized for everybody. Automate your lights, they're going to automatically turn off. The context is endless of what can throw that off. And we are going to have this ability to have more personal, the AI is going to like, my struggle with talking about this is because I also have talked about AI in this smart home for 15 years. And to say that this time it's actually very different, it is very different. And I think that that's the message that's going to be really hard to get out for the next couple of years, is to be like, no, this time it's really different.
Are you talking because I've seen so many interoperability standards over my 35 years in this career.
I'll give you a very tangible use case, right? So Headspace, everybody knows who they are. Headspace worked with an agency to use AI to create synthetic cohorts of their cohorts, right? What's the subgroups? What's the different typologies of people? It's the wrong word to say, but they created 400 different subcategories of consumers that use their apps. And they rolled out 400 different versions of like, stress at work or anxiety or something. And they saw, and it was AI in the back end of doing that development, of doing the iteration of the screens and going out and testing it, that they created 400 different, like when you onboard now into a section, it'll ask you, like, do you work from home? Do you do this? And it's going to show me different screens than it would for somebody else. And their uptake was 12%. That's real tangible. So that's how you start to see this. Well, what is this AI, adaptable UX UI mean for us?
Yeah. On the previous two slides ago, there was the bottom line on the 7-year plan, and I think it said something about marketing homes as independence enabling platforms, not just houses. I love that line, where the idea of moving into a home that's built correctly and adapted correctly, that this home actually enables independence instead of the idea that we're just trying to do this workaround. that this home actually makes your life better and allows you to be more independent because you live here. I love that line, and I'm gonna steal it. So
What also is different is this contextual knowledge that grows.
yeah,
It is not like, and so knowledge graphs, right? I've seen a lot of the Samsung stuff. They show, how it's not only taking these sensors and understanding these things, but building this memory component, right? In a privacy world where it's on device, in your home, privacy centric, that it starts to learn that context about you. And oh, wouldn't it be great if it learned the context about the home, how it performs?
Email addresses are here. Ask these smart folks questions. They'll be asking each other questions. Remember the Technology Association and their Consumer Electronics Show, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.